You're listening to the Geek Watch Podcast, episode 75, Marvel Conquers Comic-Con.
This is the Geek Watch Podcast with Brian Hatcher and Mandy Petrie.
Greetings, Geek Watchers, and welcome to episode 75 of the Geek Watch Podcast. I'm Brian Hatcher, and with me, as always, Geek Watch's own resident geek goddess, Mandy Petrie.
Hi, Brian. Hey, we're up to 3 bits.
Yes, we are. And so we have Comic-Con news for this week. Yes, and some odds and ends. But before we get to that, we do have an in memoriam today. On Wednesday, we lost Rutger Hauer.
Yeah.
Now, of course, a lot of you will, I would say some of you will remember him as Lothos, the head vampire in Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
Probably, you may remember him from True Blood. Mm-hmm. You might remember him from Lady Hawk, but I'm sure most of you will remember him from a certain movie. You'll definitely remember him from Blade Runner. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you've been on Facebook, I'm sure somebody has posted that final soliloquy that he gives at the end, before he dies. So this is a loss for sure. Mm-hmm. And all the different movies that he did genre-wise. I mean, he
all of them.
Yeah.
every genre.
Yeah, pretty much.
I can't think of one, because Lady Hawk, that covers sci-fi, fantasy, and romance.
Yeah.
And me, especially my D&D group, really love him. Was in the 10th Kingdom, which was a made-for-TV miniseries, which was fantastic. It was, I believe, maybe 99, 2000, and he played the huntsman for Snow White, and he was just magical in that, and just every part that I've ever seen him in. Oh yeah, and of course he was very much a fixture in vampire fiction, of course, with Buffy and Salem's Lot also, obviously. And of course he was Anne Rice's first pick for Lestat. Really? Yeah, she said that she couldn't see another actor doing it besides him. Now, of course, Tom Cruise wound up getting the role later on in a film, but... And Stuart Townsend. Yes, and Stuart Townsend later on. But, Anne Rice's first pick was going to be Rutger Hauer. He said that was who she imagined. Well, yeah, it would have been Lady Hawk, period, Rutger Hauer, or even Hitcher, when she was in the midst of creating Interview with a Vampire. So, wow, yeah. Yeah, that was her. I mean, in every interview, she said that he's my Lestat. Totally. Yeah, he'll definitely be missed. But a little piece of trivia, Rutger Hauer and I have played 2 of the same roles. We were both Valverde in Cyrano de Bergerac. Oh. And we were both the Ghost of Christmas Future in A Christmas Carol. Aww. For me, that was the last role that I've played. And for him, it will be the last role he'll ever play, because this actually is currently being filmed for it's a TV special, and he was the Ghost of Christmas Future. I was really expecting you to tell me something like Renfield or what did you play in Dracula? I'm sorry, I can't remember. Oh, I played I played one of the asylum guards who gets his neck snapped by Renfield. Oh, okay. I remember something about Renfield and okay. Yes, or Jonathan Harker or something. Yeah. Yes, I get my neck broken by Renfield. It was a lot of fun. So Ryan Hardiman killed me. Aww. So obviously a glorious moment. So, but yeah, we're definitely going to miss Rutger Hauer. I mean, what he contributed to geekdom, can't possibly be measured for sure. Well, before we get into Comic-Con this last weekend, Marvel Avengers Endgame finally topped off. It is now the highest grossing film of all time. Beat out Avatar. Yeah, boy, did they work really hard at it, though. And some people say, well, that's not fair because they re-released it and they put new footage. But at the same time, other people will tell you why Avatar, the reason it made the money it did was it was playing during a very weak summer when there wasn't anything really else to watch, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But for me, it certainly had the juice to, even though you had to kind of push the car the rest of the way home. Yeah, they did get it home, and so I mean, we have that. We definitely have that in the books now. And James Cameron once again was very magnanimous and gave well wishes to Marvel. Very gracious. Very. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
certainly so. So let's go over Comic-Con. I mean, we can't certainly go over everything those last few days. I mean, there was great cosplay and a lot of great trailers, and we talked about a little bit of it. But one thing definitely, for it being the 50th Comic-Cons, a lot of people were talking about how it didn't really seem like this was a milestone Comic-Con, that it was just another, it could have been any year Comic-Con. And in fact, in some cases, he said it was not even one of the best Comic-Cons. And one thing definitely people noticed was there was a lot of people that didn't show up. Universal Studios didn't show up. Sony didn't show up. Warner Brothers, for the most part, didn't show up. There was, of course, a new trailer for it, but that was part of Scare Diego. So, and Lionsgate had nothing. There was a lot of talk about why that was. I mean, and because of that, a lot of other, of course, Marvel pretty much had the floor to wow people, and some other things also came to the forefront that probably wouldn't if you had other studios, putting stuff out there. But I've read a bunch of articles of people saying the Comic-Con doesn't promote movie sales like it used to, or possibly that studios are realizing that the word of mouth at Comic-Con doesn't translate in a box office. And so maybe a lot of these studios didn't come because they didn't think it was worth it. And some of them might not ever come back. And to be honest, I'm not sure how true that is.
Right.
But I will say, I mean, fandom can be very rough, and a bad showing at Comic-Con, in some cases, as damaging as maybe even a bad Rotten Tomatoes score. And fandom can be tricky. It certainly can. And, certainly fans can smell out, if somebody's not really a fan. But it was, like I said, it was really interesting, not only who was there, but who wasn't there. And of course, we talked about Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really watch the panel because I had a feeling I knew how it was going to go. And from what I understood, it went exactly the way that you think that it went. There were some boos for certain things. The one big thing was this was supposed to be, well, of course, a victory lap for Game of Thrones. And that last season kind of wrecked that. But the other thing is this was supposed to be a Q&A. And the Game of Thrones Q&A wasn't. They did not take questions from the audience at all. They talked about the show, but they didn't let anybody out in the audience ask questions or express any opinions. And I get it. I definitely get it.
But if that's what they advertised and then the fans didn't get that, that can be, that can be disappointing. It's
there were some moments that were very uncomfortable from what I understood. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't bring myself to watch it because I was afraid of the cringe.
It's kind of like ordering a 3-course meal and then only getting a dessert or an appetizer. Yeah. And, you paid for that. You wanted to come and, you get a chance that, you might get to talk to Maisie Williams. And so I can see why that's upsetting.
Yeah. Something that I saw online, it was an article, and I hadn't really thought of it this way, but of course, Daniloff and Weiss didn't show up, the showrunners. And like I said last week, I can understand why you wouldn't want to show up. But at the same time, and they made a good point in this article, is, of course, the two of them are going to be doing a Star Wars trilogy. And they're not really fan favorites right now. And Disney has no problem whatsoever with tanking some people who aren't fan favorites if they think it's going to mess up their box office. And so with this being, Star Wars and all, I mean, we know what happened with Rian Johnson. He had a trilogy of movies coming out, and he's kind of been brushed off to the side, which it looks like that's not going to happen. And so, Daniloff and Weiss, they're not in any aspect safe. Whether their fan dealings with Game of Thrones is going to affect any future employment they have with Disney, well, I guess we'll have to see.
Yes, this year would have been like just the Comic-Con of the networks. Because I can't think of a network that wasn't there. I mean, Walking Dead, Nosferatu were there for AMC. Winona Earp was there for Sci-Fi. And of course, all of Supernatural and Arrow and Supergirl and The Flash, all of that.
And all the Star Trek stuff coming out in CBS. I tell you, but who wasn't there that was a surprise? Ruby Rose didn't show up for the Batwoman panel.
Oh, huh. Huh.
Yeah, she was a no-show.
Oh, I could have sworn I saw a clip of her or something. Maybe it was from something different.
Well, there was an Instagram post that she did explaining the reason she couldn't be there. She said she was heartbroken, but because of production on Batwoman, she couldn't be there. Mm-hmm. And some people, and I can see why they said it, was like, well, this is Comic-Con. You're playing Batwoman. You know, they can slow down production for a day or two to promote the show that they want people to watch. Mm-hmm. And I can see that. And especially with the fact that there's been some criticism of the show already from the trailer. One, I'm not sure what you do to damage control that, because a lot of it, you know, I'm really questioning whether or not it's necessarily they're doing anything wrong in this situation. But at the same time, I think there's a huge fear of fans going on right now where people are trying to avoid controversy at all costs. Like I said, I mean, I'm not saying that they were lying about the production schedule with the whole thing with Ruby Rose. I'm not saying that this is a whole fabricated thing. But on the one hand, I kind of would have, I think it might have been a good idea for her to have been there. But on the other hand, I'm thinking, well, maybe they dodged a bullet. I don't know. It really depends on how that panel how it would have gone. Mm-hmm. So it could have made things a whole lot better and certainly could have made things a whole lot worse. But speaking of sci-fi, of course, you know, we got to see the trailer for Picard, which has really got me interested. So, I've heard people say that this is, you know, Star Trek meets Firefly. And I've heard people say that as a positive, and I've heard people say that as a negative. Aww. But I have to tell you this. The fact that the showrunner is Michael Chabon has me really excited about the possibilities of this show. Mm-hmm. Because I'm a huge Michael Chabon fan, obviously. I mean, from the, you know, when he was writing The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. I mean, I envy him so much in the fact that he's able to straddle both the world of pop culture and literary writing, and he's been able to do both of them so well and meld popular fiction and literary fiction with such a deft hand. And so I think that he's going to be perfect to basically take Star Trek and Jean-Luc Picard and delve deeper into him as a character. And I think it's going to be fantastic, and I can't wait to see what's going on with that. But there's a lot of great trailers. Of course, the Walking Dead stuff that came out. You mentioned that before. I mean, of course, you know, Danai Gurira in tears announced, of course, that she wasn't going to be, that this was going to be her last season. I mean, we already knew it, but of course, now she officially announces it.
Right, to say it is different and, you know, to get really hit the emotions. And
yeah. There was some talk about Negan possibly getting a TV spinoff, like he's possibly getting a comic spinoff. And I've heard a few complaints about, they're trying to make him a hero. And it's like, you didn't read the comics, did you? It's amazing how people complain about they're ruining my movie instead of sticking with the source material. And the source material did exactly what, you know, what you're complaining about. And we'll get back to that because, again, Comic-Con, right? Here's the one big thing that shocked me about the Walking Dead panel. Piece of news that I wasn't expecting is it appears that the Rick Grimes movies will not be on TV.
Yeah, in theaters.
Universal's going to be releasing them. So
you know, I mean, yay, but it's shocking.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, get your money.
Yeah.
And you know, because for some reason, Universal got this idea that, hey, if you got this cult hit that fans are really fond of, and you put it in movie theaters, they might be willing to give you $1 billion for it. It may happen, you know. So I think it's a solid thing. One last, before we go into the Marvel Phase 4, because that's going to take a little while to go over all of that. But even though Warner Brothers didn't show up, there was a DC superhero presence because you had the CW and the TV shows, and like you said, you know, the TV shows showed up in full force, but the CW was there to get everybody really excited about the new seasons of Supergirl. And of course, we got the pictures of her in her new outfit. Supergirl got pants now. You know, no more skirt. Supergirl got the pants now. And of course, we got the last season of Arrow coming out. But the one thing that really blew me away was the crossover they're doing this year. The Crisis of Infinite Earths. Mm-hmm. Wow. And of course, you know, for DC, that is like the milestone event of, when anybody thinks of DC and crossover events and huge events, Crisis on Infinite Earths is that pinnacle. It is that story that everybody thinks about. And they are going full force with this.
The fact that we're getting Brandon Roth back as Superman.
Yes, we're getting Brandon Roth. Yeah, we're getting Brandon Roth back. He's going to of course, he's been in, what's the name of that show? Heroes of Tomorrow? I
know what you're talking about, but I don't watch it. So
yeah, I don't watch it, but I've heard a lot of great things about it. And of course, Arthur Darvill from Doctor Who is, but Legends of Tomorrow.
Legends of Tomorrow.
Oh, great! I remembered it, so we don't have to take heat, and I don't have to take hate from the fans there. But yeah, Legends of Tomorrow, and of course, he was Superman in Bryan Singer's Superman Returns, and yes, he's put the cape back on, but that's not it.
Nope,
that is not all. Tom Welling. Smallville, yes, he's coming.
I don't think I knew that one. Oh, wow.
Yes, they're bringing Tom Welling back.
Oh.
So he's going to be playing Clark Kent / Superman. So they're bringing him back. And that's not all, kids. Because, of course, with the one thing about the CW, they said, okay, everything that's ever appeared on TV is canon. And so everything's up for grabs. And so they're bringing Burt Ward back as Robin.
So when they say everything on TV, we're going back to the 1960s.
Yes.
Yes.
So yes, we get Burt Ward as Robin, and of course Adam West has passed away. And in the storyline, they're going to say that Batman died because, of course, in Crisis of Infinite Earths, a lot of the different dimensions get wrecked. All these alternate Earths, and so they're not going to try to recast Burt Ward. Mm-hmm. They're going to just basically say that. The one thing that I really enjoyed is they're bringing Linda Carter back to play Wonder Woman.
Brilliant.
I can't tell you how excited.
Wonder Whirl.
Yes. But yeah, all the different, like I said, all these different television shows, and some of it, of course, they brought, like old school, the old Flash TV show from the early 90s. So they brought characters back in, for stuff like that. But I mean, they are, like I said, going in deep. Mm-hmm. They're dipping into a lot of these different things. And I mean,
well, something they had done, bringing in actors who had been on previous, in Smallville, Superman, or Clark Kent's mother played Lana in Superman, I think 3 with Christopher Reeve. They brought in actors that way. So they brought in actors to play different characters.
Yeah.
I think Dean Cain is in Supergirl.
Yeah.
So
and they did bring in Chris Reeves into Smallville. He did have a role.
Oh, I don't remember that. That's amazing. So,
yes, he's a scientist.
Oh, brilliant. Of course he is. So they had that kind of casting, but now to bring back actors playing their actual roles that they were, that's just going to be so exciting. Such good, that just brings generations together.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's in a strange way, it's the same. I would say it's the same kind of excitement we've had with the Marvel movies having all these crossovers, but CW with their television, and of course, since the 60s, the 1960s, we're going back that far with Batman and Robin, and being able to do all of those things. I think in a real sense, that really opens up a lot of stuff. And I don't watch a lot of the CW shows, although I catch it in bits and pieces, and the stuff is not bad at all. But I always like to catch those big crossover events, and this is going to be one we can't miss for sure. Well, before we go, let's go over the one long, massive victory lap that Marvel did, but certainly not resting on their laurels. They had a bunch of stuff they announced for Phase 4. They gave us the entire Phase 4
timeline. Yes,
everything we were going to see, and it's the biggest one yet. And of course, it's going to be because they've got 5 movies that are coming out for Phase 4, which will be 2020 and 2021. Mm-hmm. But they'll also have 5 TV shows coming out. And so we'll start it chronologically. Of course, Black Widow comes out May the 1st, 2020. And wow, we're going to have, It's not been online yet, but of course there's a fight between Black Widow and another character, which I guess is sort of a Black Widow in training, a spy in training.
Okay.
And they said it's some kick butt serious action, and they said you're not ready for that. So, but they also announced who the villain's going to be, and that got me really excited as a comic fan. The villain is going to be the Taskmaster, and I'm not sure if you know much about the Taskmaster.
I don't. Mm-mm.
He is a villain that has what they call photographic reflexes, which means that if he sees a hero perform something, he's able to copy it exactly. Okay. So that's why he carries a sword with him. He carries a shield like Captain America, because the minute he saw Captain America throw the shield, he could throw it just like him.
So not just adaptive muscle memory, but he can actually copy their powers?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, if he sees somebody flies, he can't fly. But anything athletic, he has a limit to his strength, obviously, but any type of athletic skill, he sees it once and he can completely duplicate it. And in the Marvel comic universe, he is a trainer. He basically trains other villains, and he's trained some heroes in combat skills because, of course, he can throw a shield just as well as Captain America. He can shoot an arrow just as good as Hawkeye, and he does all of those things. Okay.
In Heroes, the TV show, when someone was able to do that, they called it adaptive muscle memory. So in this, they're calling it
photographic reflexes.
Photographic reflexes. Okay.
So he can see when he sees Spider-Man flippy around, then he can flip around like Spider-Man.
Okay.
And and he sees it once, and he can do it forever at that point. So he's like I said, an interesting character, and obviously, as a trainer, I can see why he would be in Black Widow, because apparently he's going to be training these Russian agents, and again, he's a very formidable foe, as you can imagine. Not only does he have all these abilities, but he'll watch you long enough, he'll be able to copy you. You know, any moves that you pull on him. So, tough. Definitely a tough setup. But, of course, that movie will be May 1st. For the TV shows, they didn't give you any exact dates, because I guess they're still...
Nothing concrete.
Yeah, nothing concrete, because I think they're still working all that out for Disney+. But sometime in the fall of 2020, we're going to get the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And if you remember Zemo from Civil War, the character that set everything in motion that started the fight between them, he's back. And, of course, people who remember Baron Zemo, they remember him in the purple hood. And he will be wearing the purple hood in this TV show. So he... This great mastermind, criminal mastermind, will be the lead villain in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So, and it's going to be interesting to see him come back, and also see him get more involved, and we possibly could get more of the comic version of Zemo, the criminal mastermind that he is. And then, of course, we got to see the Eternals. That's going to be in November 5th, 2020.
Oh yeah, and what a cast!
Yeah,
man,
solid. And of course, they brought Angelina Jolie, and there's like a couple of Oscar, you got a couple of Oscar winners in that. I mean, it's a massive cast. The one thing that really excited me about this, if you've not read The Eternals, of course, that was a creation by Jack Kirby. And Feige said they are going to go full Jack Kirby on this. And for people who know Jack Kirby, that's exciting to hear, because besides the fact Jack Kirby was very creative as an artist, he was also very trippy as an artist. A lot of the stuff that he did for Doctor Strange, I mean, a lot of the look of the early Doctor Strange was all Jack Kirby. And I remember his run on Marvel's Dracula, and a lot of the Dracula comics that he did. They were very weird. And so saying going full Jack Kirby is going to be a sight to see. And that just shows you how far Marvel has gone. The fact that they're willing to go full out on something like this just shows just how much cachet the Marvel name has in the movie theaters now, obviously. They're not afraid to go there. Another thing, of course, that they're going to be bringing out and basically taking their cachet to bring forward is SHANG CHI and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Yeah.
That's February 18th, I think? 18th, 2021. You've got a Hawaiian director in Dustin Daniel Creighton, who's mostly done some smaller features. But again, Marvel has that ability to see talent. They look for, young, fresh directors to take on these movies. And SHANG CHI, I mean, again, it's going to be for all the accusations of whitewashing that was done for Iron Fist, I mean, you have Asian actors in all of this stuff, you know. Simu Liu is going to be SHANG CHI, and a lot of the stuff he's done is a little bit different.
I've only seen him in comedy in Kim's Convenience, and he's just hilarious in that.
Yeah.
So to see him in, you know, the most action, I think maybe he played basketball in one of the shows, but you know, I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah, and the thing about it too is that, you know, Marvel, they're willing to admit when they've possibly made a mistake or whatever, and they're willing to back on it. And so, of course, when you hear Legend of the Ten Rings, we get Tommy Chua Wei Leun as the Mandarin, as the real Mandarin. Now, if you were, I'm sure a lot of the Geek Watchers out there remember Iron Man 3. And the fervor, of course, you know, the Mandarin has always been a massive villain for Iron Man. And of course, you get Ben Kingsley, this amazing actor, to play him. And then you find out, oh, he's just some drunk actor. But then, of course, if you see if you get the DVD, then you get to see one of their little short films that they love putting in as extra features, which is All Hail the King, which you get to see that character in prison, and he gets abducted by the real Mandarin. You never see him. So they decide, you know, not saying they were planning on doing that all along, you know, but they thought, well, people like the Mandarin, and they were really upset about the fact that we didn't get, that we baited and switched them, and they didn't get the Mandarin. Well, 2021, you're getting the Mandarin. And what makes that a fascinating character is, in the comics, SHANG CHI was the son of Fu Manchu, the traditional villain Fu Manchu. They were able to get the rights to Fu Manchu, and they made SHANG CHI his son. And so you had that battle between father and son, you know.
Going against your not destiny, but a legacy. Going against your legacy.
Exactly. And so a lot of people are thinking that, since, of course, Marvel doesn't have the rights to Fu Manchu anymore, that they're going to make the Mandarin SHANG CHI's father. And so it's going to be that dynamic. And, of course, the Mandarin's nothing to mess with. You know, the Ten Rings, of course, is the name of this terrorist organization, but the Mandarin is remembered in the comics specifically that he wears 10 power rings, and each one has a special ability, like a heat beam or a freeze beam, and they're alien.
Is there one ring to rule them all?
Oh, well, yeah. Yes. And very often what he'll do is he'll sometimes, you know, with, you know, one of his trusted assassins, he'll give them one of the rings to use on a job. But that's where the term 10 rings comes from. And in the first Iron Man, when he's captured by that terrorist organization and they call themselves 10 Rings, everybody got excited because they knew that was a reference to the Mandarin. And then, of course, you get the Mandarin, kinda, and people were really heated about it. But
come on, it's been, 15 years later? You know, just patient.
There you go.
Be patient.
Like I said, Marvel listens to their fans, and they will roll back stuff when they feel like they've made a mistake. And we are going to get a real Mandarin, and I cannot wait. Going back to TV, spring 2021, WandaVision.
WandaVision. I love that name.
I'm such a fan of that. Now, what's really, really interesting is they're bringing in a new actress, Teyonah Parris, I think is her name, as Monica Rambeau, which we remember as the girl in Captain Marvel.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, of course, years have passed since, you know, since
96.
Yeah.
Was it? 7?
Yeah, exactly. And so she's now grown up. Now, those of us in the comics remembers that Monica Rambeau, she gained powers and became, they called her Miss Marvel for a while, but then they started referring to her as Photon. She has the ability to control any form of energy and to turn her body into any form of energy. And in the comics, she's had dealings in the past with, you know, both the Vision and Scarlet Witch. So bringing her in, we may get Photon. That's interesting. But what's also interesting is WandaVision is going to develop a storyline that's going to pay off in the next Doctor Strange movie. Which, of course, May 7th, 2021, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Which is going to have the Scarlet Witch in it. And what's interesting about this is that there's talk that they're going to retcon the Scarlet Witch's powers for this movie. The fact they're bringing bringing her into Doctor Strange, that they're going to make her powers a little bit more like the powers she has in the comics, which is, one, she's a mutant, and they're starting to say mutant now. So
she's Eric Lesher's daughter. So.
Right. Yeah. In the comics. So what they're saying is that a lot of her powers come from chaos magic, and that they're going to make her powers more magic based. And the explanation of her powers more magic based, and allow her to perform magic, actual magic, and that they're going to ramp her up in that aspect. They're
kind of going the opposite as they did with the Juggernaut, because where the Juggernaut's powers were actually magic, and they made him a mutant for the movies. Now they're going backwards, where Wanda was a mutant. Now they're making her magic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the comics, she had her mutant abilities were based off of chaos magic. Her mutant abilities gave her the ability to perform chaos magic and to control chaos magic, which, as you can tell by the name chaos magic, that's not easy to do. But again, one of the most powerful mutants in in comics, she's going to be, taking on that role in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well, and seeing how they retcon her and bring her in, it just kind of shows how, again, going back to the cachet that Marvel has developed, there was a point at the beginning where they didn't really want to talk about magic. I mean, the closest they got to it was with Thor. They talk about magic there. It's like, they said, it's science to us. It's just, going back to, any advanced technology would appear as magic. And so that's kind of how they explained it. And they, with
Arthur C. Clarke originally say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly so. And then, of course, with Wanda, they just said, this was power from, from one of the Infinity Stones. But, of course, then you get into Doctor Strange, they start experimenting with the magic, and they're like, okay, people are with it. So they're not as, let's say, gun shy as it to actually say magic. And so that gives the Scarlet Witch that ability to be a master of chaos magic. And it'll be interesting to see how they lead into that in WandaVision, and then, bring it to full fruition in the new Doctor Strange movie. And so going back to TV, we got to talk about Loki, spring of 2021.
Loki.
So we're going to get a Loki TV show. And of course, people were wondering, of course, at the Infinity War, how that was going to happen, because he had died. But of course, in Endgame. Yeah, well, of course, in Endgame, he gets a hold of the Tesseract and disappears, an earlier version of him. And so all that character development that he had from that point on to when he died, of course, all that's gone now. But you have the God of Mischief with the ability to go anywhere and anyone that he wants. And hilarity will ensue. I have no question. So, and of course, we have What If in the summer of 2021, their animated stuff. And they didn't really go into a whole lot of details more than what we already knew, but I'm still excited to see what goes on there. And then they announced another TV show for the fall of 2021, Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Which, of course, Jeremy Renner forever was saying, at the beginning, he wanted to do a TV show because he really wanted to develop this character. Now, what excited a lot of people when they saw the logo of Hawkeye is it looked very familiar to them, especially if you read the comics, because there's recently been a Hawkeye comic. And the logo for the Hawkeye comic is the exact same one as they're doing for the TV show. So people are really excited because they're fans of that particular comic book. The comic book written by Matt Fraction and David Aja. And it deals a lot with Hawkeye training Kate Bishop to be the new Hawkeye. And so they think that that's going to be a huge part of it. And they believe that, that scene at the beginning of Endgame where, you see the young woman with the ankle bracelet shooting the arrow, that was Kate Bishop, and he was training her. And so we'll have that mentor-mentee thing going on. And of course, Kate Bishop does become a new Hawkeye, and she joins the Young Avengers and all of that. So getting to see that character develop, plus the writing for that comic was just amazing. There was such great storytelling in that comic. And so the thought of getting to see that on the big screen is going to be fantastic. And then, of course, we have to talk about the last movie, November 5th, 2021, Thor, Love and Thunder.
And that talk about logos. That logo is like Thundercats and everything you want from the 80s. It's
the whole metal at the top, the solar at the top, metal at the bottom. I mean, they're definitely doubling down on the stuff that we enjoyed in the last Thor movie. And of course, we get Taika Waititi again directing. And of course, he did in fact post a picture of the logo with him scribbling underneath of it. And we didn't forget about the Grandmaster. Well, and this is, I didn't know. Remember, we talked about a lot of the little short movies that they do. And of course, there was those movies with all the questions about why Thor didn't show up. He wasn't involved in the last Avengers movie. And you had Thor living with a roommate and all those videos. Well, they've done new ones with I'm trying to remember what the name of the roommate is, but he has a new roommate.
Something like Doug.
Doug, I think. And his new roommate's the Grandmaster, and they brought him in, and they're rooming together. So they're doubling down on that. So we will get. It looks like we're going to get more Grandmaster, but it also looks like Valkyrie, who is now the king of Asgard. We didn't say queen. The king of Asgard, and said that she will be looking for her queen. So it's like there have been questions about Valkyrie's sexuality, and it looks like we're going to get answers for them, which they're saying that she's going to be the first, character LGBTQ plus to come out, as a character. Although, honestly, I have some questions about Captain Marvel, because I kind of had a feeling between, with Carol Danvers that there might have been a relationship there. I don't know if they're going to develop that or not, but I mean, it will definitely play a part with Valkyrie in this movie. And the big announcement that shocked everybody was when Natalie Portman walked out.
Yep, wasn't what you thought.
It wasn't what you thought. Well, that was the shock of it, because
I kept thinking, what about Asgardians of the Galaxy? Thor's out with the Guardians of the Galaxy. How's he going to have this movie? What? No.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is, of course, he is. My understanding is he is going to be in the movie, and it's going to come out before Obviously, it's going to come out before Guardians 3. I have to say, and I can't even say why it was this way, but I was really disappointed on a bunch of things that Marvel did. And one of them was the fact that Vision picked up the hammer. They'd been teasing it up, but when he picked up the hammer, it bothered me. And when Natalie Portman left, and wasn't, had kind of left Marvel, and they had cut ties and all that bothered me, because, and I don't know why in particular I was so invested in this, but I really wanted to see the Mighty Thor. Jane Foster as Thor. I wanted her to be the one to pick up the hammer. And I wanted her to be the one to pick up the hammer for Endgame, but, of course she was gone. And I mean, we did get that moment with Captain America, and I'm fine with that. But even for that is why I wouldn't have had Vision pick up the hammer for that either. If Captain America would have been the first person to pick up that hammer, it would have been, to me, more impactful as a storyteller. But I really, really wanted Jane Foster to pick up that hammer. I really wanted it. I wanted to see the Mighty Thor. And we're gonna get a chance to see that now. And so it's like Santa got my letter. That whole storyline, although, like I said, some people are saying, well, this is just a gender swap Thor. But I mean, the storyline that Jane Foster had in the comics was amazing. And, that character just recently died in a miniseries, Saving Asgard. But getting a chance to see this, like I said, Santa got my letter. I was absolutely excited about that. But they weren't done, because, of course, this is Marvel, and you've always got to throw something into the credits. So they gave out a bunch of baseball caps that had this gorgeous logo for Black Widow, the Black Widow movie. And then they announced Mahershala Ali to come out. And he came out and he said, "Oh, you brought a hat too." And he did. He put it on and it said Blade.
Yes.
And everybody went crazy. So it's like they've already,
what could they possibly have left? Is the next thing. What could they possibly have
now,
left?
of course, with it, there were a couple things about that, made the internet explode. The first one was, and I've seen some news sources bring this up also, but they said that, of course, I remember him from the first season of Luke Cage as Cottonmouth, and he was, well, the guy's won an Oscar. Okay, so of course he was incredible. He played an amazing baddie who died way too early in that season, but he was amazing. And some people were saying, well, if he's going to be Blade in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, does that mean that everything that happened on Netflix is no longer canon? And I'll say this. As a fan of Doctor Who, this doesn't bother me because those of us who've watched Doctor Who, we're used to actors playing one role and then coming back and playing a bigger role. Like
being a bit part, then being a companion, being a small part, and then being the Doctor.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Sixth Doctor, the actor who played the Sixth Doctor, Colin Baker, held a gun and threatened the Fifth Doctor, Peter Davison. And then, but that happens all the time in Doctor Who.
Adjman and Karen Gilliam were both on Doctor Who before they became companions.
Right.
So,
and the first Doctor's companion, one of her companions, she comes back for the Fourth Doctor and plays a villain. So, and that happened. And of course, the most obvious is, of course, Peter Capaldi, who, was in a 10th Doctor, the Fires of Pompeii, which also had Karen Gilliam in it as a seer.
Right.
And of course, he comes back as the Doctor, and they actually refer to the fact that they look alike, and they make it a plot line in one of the stories.
Fine.
The Doctor Who fans were used to that. So I don't really feel that just because Ali is going to be playing Blade, that automatically means that everything that happened in the Marvel Cinematic Universe or on Netflix, that all of that has become non-canon now. But, I mean, obviously, we're not going to see any of those characters until, another year and a half, I think, until those contracts run out. And we talked about this before when the Netflix shows shut down. I mean, we definitely want to see them again because there was a lot of great stuff there. And now that Marvel isn't afraid to go because, again, Black Widow
and Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a horror film.
Yeah. So they're going to be willing to go there. So those shows will definitely fit in as well. And I'd love to see them revive them on Disney Plus when they get the chance to do so. Certainly, because there's a lot of story left to tell there for certain. That's what they had to say about Phase 4. They didn't say a whole lot about Phase 5, but I have a feeling, and of course we talked about this last week about D23. I think we're going to get some major Phase 5 news in D23.
Yeah. So what do they have left?
Yeah. Besides the fact that, I mean, they might be able to give more details about Phase 4, but I think that this was the setup to let you know, hey, some great stuff is right around the corner. But I mean, you think about it, 10 different things we're going to get in this course of 2 years.
Yeah.
In 2 years. And wow, I mean, that's a full plate. Phase 4 is going to go through. I mean, it used to be like 3 or 4 years it would take to get through a phase. And now, you can, with Disney Plus and movies now, they're able to cram in a lot more stuff. And so, from what I understand, the rumor is Kevin Feige's got Phase 5 down already. That we're going to see Blade in Phase 5. That we're going to see Black Panther 2 in Phase 5. That we might see Fantastic Four in Phase 5.
X-Men?
Some, possibly. But, a lot of people, it's funny because, with Phase 4, there are a lot of people making comments about what we didn't see there, we're not getting an Avengers movie at all, that we're not getting any Deadpool and things like that. And it's like, well, they're setting up for a lot of different things. I mean, especially with the Fox properties, they're trying to align it well. They're not just going to shove it out there because let's be honest, if Fox made a mistake at all with any of the Marvel properties is when they shoved that stuff out there and didn't develop it. And I don't think Marvel's going to make that mistake. Slow and Steady has won the race for them. And now they are a powerhouse of a studio now with an amazing amount of properties that, I mean, think about it. When they first bought the Marvel properties back And when Disney bought Marvel Studios, $3 billion, and they were like, man, Disney just wasted a whole bunch of money. They have made their money back many times because of this. It's crazy. But I mean, it's to a point now where I worry a little bit that the federal government might step in eventually and break them up, as seeing them as this huge monopoly. Although there are a lot of other movie studios out there and a lot of other television studios out there, but man, the power that Disney wields right now in movies cannot be denied for sure. And 1 month, we get D23. And it's like you said, what more can they say? What more
can they say?
Well, Kevin Feige's got that knowing smile on his face, and I'm pretty sure he's got a lot more to say, and we will definitely talk about it when we get the news and see it for ourselves. And so with that said, we come to the end of episode 75 of the Geek Watch podcast. Thank you for listening, and tune in next week for the latest in geek news and views with the Geek Watch podcast. For Mandy Petrie, this is Brian Hatcher, reminding all the Geek Watchers out there, we're all geeky about something. Be proud of yours. See you next time. Thank you for listening to the Geek Watch podcast. If you enjoyed this program, don't forget to like and subscribe on your preferred platform and share this podcast on your social media. For links to all the ways you can listen to the Geek Watch podcast, as well as leave comments and suggestions, visit our website at geekwatch.net. The Geek Watch podcast is a Hanging J production.